this episode, I sit down with the one and only Akermo, an artist who has not only mastered his craft, but has significantly influenced and shaped the tattoo culture with his unique style and visionary approach to his designs. It was so great to sit down with Oscar again and hear his perspective on tattooing, what inspires him, what challenges him, and what it takes to make art that's original, authentic, and can stand the test of time. Oscar has also recently launched an app called C23 Labs. This app is made for tattoo artists who want to learn, grow, and connect. And if you're listening or watching this podcast, that's most likely you. It's kind of like a social network for tattoo artists. You can go on and watch tutorials, you can receive feedback on your work, you can connect with other artists and studios from all over the world, and much more. You can find out more information about the app and check out all of Oscar's work on Instagram. It's at Oscar Akermo. My name is Jake Barry, and this is The Fine Line. Thank you for doing this with me, Oscar.
Of course.
Well, I'm gonna jump straight into it.
Shoot, man.
We're gonna go straight for the tough questions.
Let's go. I'm ready.
I firmly believe that you sparked something in the tattoo culture that is still trickling out today.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm talking about like the style of work you do,
Yeah.
the compositions you put together. You see a lot of people that are heavily influenced by that. A nice way to put it would be that they're influenced by you, and then you have some people that are just trying to replicate exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I don't get asked much, and I like it because I don't. You know, when I started doing that type of compositions, when I slowly started doing that type of stuff, I was very lost as an artist, and I've been doing this for 14 years, like over half of my life at this point. And I wanted something new, and I had just moved to New York, and I just did sort of black and gray realism, like, you know, big. Back in 2014, 15, it was all, you know, the big lions and the big Zeus on the arms and stuff. And I was kind of tired of that. And I moved here, and I started going to museums, and I started going to random art galleries. I started getting into graphic design a lot. I love websites. It's like one of the most beautiful things. And like the way graphic designers will format things, like texts and stuff. So slowly I got into that, and I just, for me, it was just sort of mixing that into what I was already doing, and that's kind of how the style came out. So what I want to say with that, the reason I say that is because I never felt any form of ownership over a certain style. So if anything, I felt more like, oh, it's cool that people seem to be liking what I am doing. So much that they get inspired from it. And I guess I've never seen it as though someone's copying me, because I'm copying somebody else anyway. You know, and I think we're all copying each other, and it's kind of beautiful in a way.
I like that. I suppose art is just a constant trickle
it
of
really
someone
is.
else.
And I'm at a different point today. Like if you were to go into my like inspiration folder, it would look very different.
Really?
Yeah.
What would it look like?
I look at a lot of black work today.
Really?
Yeah, like big bold stuff nowadays. But and like stuff where they use the body and like in ways.
Yes.
I love that. And I'm going a little bit away from the micro tattooing to, I'm thinking about larger concepts. Maybe larger concepts with some smaller stuff. But yeah, you're really right. It's like it trickles down in sort of generations of tattooers and from person to person, and I think I'm a very easily influenced person.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if I spend like a week with you, I'll be like a bit of you will be in me.
Yeah, that's nice though, I think.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that no matter what, even if that happens and you start kind of taking on forms from other people, it's still going to look different to how they do it because you're bringing yourself into it.
Right, it'll always go through your filter, right?
Yeah.
So I actually really appreciate it when I see somebody do maybe something that's close to the way I usually compose stuff,
Sure, yeah.
but like do it better.
Really?
There are
You
some
see
that,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
of course, man. Yeah, like
I was
I'm not
gonna
going to name any names here, but so I don't want to be. But I know some guys that I'm just like, oh, dude,
Wow.
great job, great job.
That's interesting because I actually feel like even to this day you see so many people that even if it's slightly different or they have their own original flair on it, I still feel like you go on Instagram right now and you're going to see pieces of work that are directly influenced by your style.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
The type of pieces, you know what yeah.
But
Yeah.
while that happens, there's still something different about your work that
Yeah.
stands out over the rest of it. And I don't know what that is. There's still something different. What do you think that is?
With my
I know it's a hard question to answer.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm glad you think so. Maybe it's because I am still a work in progress, and I would first of all hate to become a copy of myself. And my dad said this. My dad has been my sort of spiritual mentor in art for all my life, and he also sort of asked me this question once when I started doing a lot of the same style, because around the time I moved to Bang Bang, I did whatever.
Right.
I did a lot of stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm starting to see a lot of tattooers kind of do what you do."
He noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's more on Instagram than I am.
No, really?
And the man is 71 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I love my dad. He's a great artist too, by the way. He taught me everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember him. I can't remember the conversation, but I remember him like in Swedish saying, "Yeah." I don't think he said "don't become a copy of yourself," but more. It's hard to translate, but
Sure.
but more like, yeah, it can happen to any artist that they slowly become like a gimmick of themselves.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you're at such a point in your artistic journey where just stay fluid.
That's
and
amazing.
don't decide who you are just yet. And yeah, thus not becoming a copy of yourself. And so maybe that there's something there.
Sure.
It's getting harder and harder, but I'm trying to do new stuff
Yeah.
within the realm
Yeah.
all the time. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
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 I think it's very easy for artists to find success in something that they did and get trapped in that.
Oh, sure. We in Swedish we call it you paint yourself into a corner.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah,
Yeah, I've experienced that.
yeah. I think most artists have.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough for tattooers because we are, at the end of the day, we're in a service industry.
Yeah.
And we're working for the client,
Yeah.
not really ourselves. To me, that's the beauty of tattooing.
Yeah.
So you're not really in control.
Right. If that's what they want, then how can you
right
steer them a different direction?
Yeah, you can only do so much.
But sometimes you feel like saying like, yeah, but if we go this direction, this is going to be the thing that everyone wants to get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you saw this on Pinterest, you would want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I sometimes use that. You know what? Instead of being the Pinterest guy, let's
create
be
the Pinterest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's be the tattoo that creates the Pinterest.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good goal. It's a hard one, but I've used that. It usually works.
Yeah.
When I'm like this idea is like, oh God.
This is interesting because if I were to look at your feed and look at the tattoos you do, I would almost feel like I would make the assumption that there's not much creative liberty that you let go of in your tattoos. I almost would assume that you don't take too much changing and inputs from people. But I don't know, maybe
from
I'm
the
wrong.
client.
From the client, I mean, yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. You know, and I hate to sound like one of the old guys, but when you've been, how long have you been tattooing? You've been tattooing for like
8 years, maybe.
Yeah, you've been
professionally
tattooing.
6 years. Not that long.
No, but it's a while, and I think you must have felt at this point that you may have even once or twice or 3 times gone through periods where you're just like, oh my God, I'm tired of tattooing.
Yes.
Right?
Of course.
Any tattooer who tattooed more than a year
Yes.
has gone through a dip.
Yes.
And I have many times. And the one thing I keep coming back to that motivates me again to keep tattooing is the collaboration between me and the client.
Beautiful, yeah.
Because in the end of the day, that's like the most special thing about, and the most sort of pure and sacred thing is to be of service.
Yes.
And if I got to choose, I'd probably be drawing dragons all day.
Really?
Like, yeah, I'd be doing one thing. I'm quite boring.
Yeah.
and so with like creative liberty, my clients, they try to defer everything to me. They're just like, I just want to like that,
yeah,
and like do whatever you have to do to get me that.
So you just try to pull things out then?
I become the detective.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I need you to do something interesting because I need your input.
Right.
Because if you don't give me anything, I'm gonna just like become a copy of myself.
Yes, yeah.
And so I really try to interview my clients. And some clients are really like baffled because they expect me to come in and take all the place and be like, no, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing that.
Yeah.
There's maybe a time and place for that. But I feel like I sort of navigate and say, okay, who's this client? What's the dynamics? What's the idea like? Sometimes you're lucky and the client just has an amazing idea and you see the tattoo right away. Other times you have to pull it out of them.
Yes.
So I try to involve my client as much as possible and defer a lot to them.
So there's a lot of influence that comes from your client, even indirectly. Like they're not maybe saying this is what I want to get, but if they start, because that was a question I had for you, is like, where do you get your inspiration?
Yeah.
I said maybe not influence, but your inspiration comes from them, from the individual.
Largely, at least like the choices in imagery and I try to have them help me pick the like sort of main characters of a tattoo sleeve, let's say, or like I try to pick apart their story by asking certain questions and so on, and do my best. And sometimes, honestly, a client is just like, I just love the aesthetic of this.
Yes. Yeah.
How can we create this? And then I'll be okay. I'll level down to that and be okay. Yeah, I think this would look great. And yeah.
Can you think of any other areas that you draw inspiration from?
Graphic design.
Graphic design.
I love typography.
Yes.
And I love talking to like website designers.
Yeah. I can see that. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. Using text as a part of the design and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Typography. If you start looking at some typography, it's amazing.
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, anything from where they like create a portrait out of it, like with a typewriter, all letters and stuff, to just like formatting text and like formatting relationships between sizes of text. You can strike a balance in that in like a beautiful, let's say, website or a business card that I just like, oh my God, I get goosebumps when I see it. It's a bit weird. It's like ASMR.
Yeah. That's good though.
Yeah, so I liked a lot of that. And then I like smart ideas.
Yeah.
So then, I see like a lot of, New York artists do a lot of weird stuff.
Yes.
Stuff that you could never sell, or I shouldn't say never, because they probably sell it for a lot of money, but strange, very thought out ideas.
Concepts, yeah.
Conceptual art.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's so smart. And I feel inspired by that.
Yeah. I feel like there reaches a point as tattoo artists try to progress and grow and get better. The more that they progress, basically the better you get, the more pressure comes with that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you're expected to meet higher standards.
Totally.
I feel like that's one part of tattooing that can be maybe overwhelming for people.
Yeah.
Where you're expected to deliver every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for the most part, the better you get, the more consistent you get, the more likely you are to deliver to that standard.
Yeah, maybe.
But do you ever feel like maybe you're not meeting those expectations or performing to that standard that has been expected of you at this point in your career?
It's definitely a struggle, yeah. Definitely. And I think, well, first of all, every tattooer has a baseline of that, because we can't make mistakes in tattooing. So you know, when you show up to do a tattoo, you got to be on your A game, right? So we all share that. If I see tattooing as like two sort of fields. There's technique, like your ability to use a tattoo machine and make execute a great tattoo. That's a skill. And then there's the sort of more artistic, fluid, like what do you do with that tattoo machine? That's the other field. So there's this design and technique. And I feel like I got technique down pretty well. So when I tattoo, I go on autopilot, and as long as I'm not stressed, as long as I slept well, had a good breakfast, I could crank out like realism tattoos, easy. But it's the design aspect that is hard, and meeting those expectations. And I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but I think a level of detachment has helped me. Because once you start to really think about, like, oh God, this guy flew from China and he's going to be with me for 3 days, and he's been waiting for this for 1.5 years, and it's his big day. And I just had a fight with my fiance this morning, and whatever. That can be tough.
That's a big part of the job, is having to leave whatever is outside of the studio at the door. Come in and be on. And that's like, I mean, I know there's a lot of jobs like that, but how could you do that like every day? That's hard.
And this is something all tattooers share, I think, because if you think about it from the client's perspective, what a massive, right, undertaking it is to go get a tattoo. And how vulnerable that is, especially for somebody getting a tattoo for their first time. If the tattooer is not like acutely aware of the vulnerable situation and is not able to take care of the client in a way that is necessary, that's a bad tattooer. And so I think about that a lot. I'm a service person. And actually, it may sound weird, but I feel like as soon as I step into the studio, I put on my tattoo artist cape. And I'm Batman, or like I'm Tattoo Man. And I'm an expert in my field.
I love that.
And I'm definitely not an expert in life. I'll tell you that much. But as soon as I go into the studio, I do feel like I can turn on.
I love that.
My tattoo artist self, and I can take care of my client, and I can sort of be the service person. And I love that, and it's actually a kind of an escape.
That's great.
And so on that level, like tending to the client, I can do on demand. But coming up with interesting designs and the client is showing like some of my best work. Oh, can we do this? I'm like, I hope so.
I know. That's very interesting to hear. I think I think people assume when they see a tattoo artist that they're just at the top of their game, that there's so much confidence that comes with that, and there's so much like, they're so sure of what they're doing, and they're never questioning things. And pretty much everyone I've talked to, that's not the case.
Never. It shouldn't be.
And but I know what you mean. Like today, someone coming to get tattooed, today is the most important day for them.
It's a big day.
It means everything to them. Like they've waited so long. They finally found an artist that they want to get tattooed by. They chose you. They maybe traveled far, like you said. And it's very easy to get caught up in like, okay, just another day for me. How do I, what am I doing after this? What do I have to plan for next week?
Exactly.
So I think that's very good advice for someone to
walk in the door and almost like visualize putting something on, like putting on a mask or putting on a cape, and be like, this is me now, and I'm here now, and this is all that matters.
Totally. Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
It's hard, but I think it's necessary to be like
absolutely
to build I guess a successful career as a tattooer. I really firmly believe that even if you're a great tattooer and you made a great tattoo, if the client didn't have a good experience in your studio, that client is likely not coming back.
Sure.
Even if they're very happy with their tattoo, but they have this kind of suboptimal experience attached to this kind of great tattoo, that sucks.
Yeah.
I think a client is more likely to come back to a tattooer where they had a great experience and the tattooer artist was present with them, and they felt heard, and they felt listened to and taken care of. Even more so if the tattoo result isn't optimal, they'll still come back to that tattooer.
Absolutely.
So if you can combine those two, like do a great tattoo every time, but also be a great human and a great tattooer every time, you can build an amazing tattoo career. And I firmly believe that.
What's the biggest lesson if you can think back over the last, I don't know, how many years have you been to? 50 years or something?
50? Do I look that old? No, I started tattooing when I was 14 and I turned 30 this year. So I'm on my 15th year.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. There's obviously chapters, I'm sure, that you can think of in your tattoo career. And I'm sure during certain chapters you've probably learned more than others. But if there's one thing you can think of throughout the whole span of your career, that would be like the biggest lesson you've learned in tattooing, what would that be?
I don't know if there's one, but maybe, one good one. I have so many, but one good one would be that it's not about me. And I had, and I think it was necessary, but I had a long period of time, and I meet a lot of younger tattooers, younger as in having not tattooed so long.
Sure.
They're still up in themselves a lot. I want to do this. I am inspired by this. I want to push this design on this client. And I saw a lot of talented tattoo artists do that to people, where they have totally their own agenda, and they did great work, but the client didn't get what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we should, the client's always right, because that's not the case either. But back to that thing, if you're able to be a person that listens and that takes in information and sort of, takes care of your client and takes care of their idea in a way where you're still true to your own inner artist, then that's been a big lesson for me, is to sort of learn that it's actually more about the client than it is about me. And tattooing got a lot easier and more fun after I kind of let go more of my own agenda and kind of just took the position of being like, I'm here for you.
A listener.
Yeah, I'm a listener. Yeah. And I do this for you. And I'm so happy to.
I love that.
That was a big lesson. But on the other hand, when I went through this sort of tumultuous artistic phase, when I just moved to New York and I slowly kind of started finding that the style that I kind of still do, I was very much like, can we do this? I want to do this. Yeah. And I would go sometimes pretty far to like push my client away from their own idea.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it's a total hit.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I could never thought of this. This is amazing. But then other times they're like, yeah, this is great, but
it's not what I wanted.
It's not really what I wanted. And I saw that always, but I was so focused on what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And that got boring, and it gets old.
Yeah.
It gets really old. And I think you'll be able to have a long career if you find that balance between like letting your clients inspire you. It's a collaboration, because they'll prompt you with stuff that you'd never think of.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, long story long.
No, that's good.
Yeah, no, that
was great.
So that's a good lesson, I think.
What's something you would like to see change in the tattoo industry? in the tattoo community?
Oh, I have a few things maybe.
Fire away.
Speaking on that first question that you had, and I think we will see it, and we are seeing it. But speaking on that style thing, yes, there are some tattooers that are very inspired by certain artists, so much that it becomes like borderline copy, and I've been there too. And I think it's an important part of your journey as a tattooer to be totally influenced by somebody. Like I had my idols. I was very, very inspired by a tattooer named Victor Portugal at one point. So much that I more or less my goal was to, if I can do exactly what he does, I'm good. Or I'll be very happy. And that's a natural part of learning something. But I think today it's a little dangerous on social media because you could create very quickly a career in something like that. You can get a lot of clients, and then you're painting yourself into the wall again. Maybe as a young tattooer, as a newer tattooer. So that can be a little dangerous. I wish that social media didn't dictate how we operate. I wish that what type of art would you do if there weren't any social media? I think a lot of people would allow themselves to experiment more and to kind of sing as though no one is hearing it and do art as though no one would ever look at it. And I think that if we could sort of allow ourselves to be very inspired at points, but then sort of go off of that into your own artistic journey and come up with your own styles. And I think and we are seeing it because we're seeing so many new, interesting, weird styles all over the place.
True.
So it is happening. I wish we saw more of it.
That's interesting because I think that could be hard for tattoo artists because you need to make money.
Exactly.
And I think to just be free to express your art or whatever you're feeling and let that come out in your art, I think there's a balance of trying to figure out how to do that and also get people that want to pay you for that.
Exactly.
And I think it's also I think one thing that people get influenced by on social media is this person is making a killing doing this. So I'm just going to do that, you know? So I think I think it depends on what your motives are.
Totally.
If you're an artist looking to express your creative, artistic side, then that's, but I think basically what I'm saying, or are you just a businessman who is looking to,
It's such a good point.
I think where do you fall on that spectrum, and what's a healthy place to fall on that spectrum, because at the end of the day, we all have to make a living. That's just a part of it. So.
Hell yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that other than.
No, but I think you made your point, we are service people.
Right.
And I'm kind of contradicting myself because the tattoo isn't about you, but do follow your artistic desires. Yeah, But
it makes sense what you're saying. It's
right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't really contradict because I think that it's this weird leap of faith you have to take where you're well, I'm going to follow my own personal thing here. I want to be myself in my art and trust that that's going to lead me somewhere that brings a business.
Exactly, because you may bring something very interesting to the market. And make the market more interesting.
Yes,
so I think aspiring towards that. And so then, healthy doses of self-expression is good.
Yes.
For the industry.
I agree.
And maybe there can be hybrids where you're riffing off of a existing style. Bringing in your own flair. But I know, man, I think every tattooer is in tandem between am I an artist or am I a barber?
Right.
What do you want?
Yes.
I constantly go between these two.
That's great.
But I think the industry could be a lot more interesting if more people sort of at least tried to bring something unique to the market.
Yes.
Because they may find that people respond really well to it, and then they can have a career doing exactly what they want. I think it's possible.
Well, that leads me to what you're doing now. So tell me about this new concept of you're trying to provide something for artists to maybe do that, right?
Yes, exactly.
What is this new idea?
My God. How do I make a long story short? Because I don't have an elevator pitch for this.
Okay.
So this may be, but I love teaching.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. And I love teaching in person. And that's hard on the internet.
Yes.
But it came to me in the pandemic, the idea that we are so many tattooers in the world today. I think in the last 5 years, the amount of tattoo artists in the world has doubled, at least.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. And we've gone from being a several $100 million business in the US to being $1 billion business. Well over. Yeah. And so there's so many tattooers, and there's so much content out there now, or more content on learning tattooing and all that stuff. And I find that with all this access to knowledge, more and more tattooers are more lost than ever, especially when they start.
Yes.
They don't know where to start, and there's not good guidance here and there. There are good guidance, there is, but it's like just a sea of information. And I think, especially in the pandemic, everyone felt lonely maybe and isolated. And being a tattooer, or choosing to walk the path of a tattooer and walk down that road, is inherently kind of a lonely journey. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm the only one in my family that chose to be a tattooer. So it wasn't until I started meeting my community of other tattooers that I felt like, oh yeah, I'm not an alien. This is my people.
Yes.
And that's so nice.
And there's so many people that are after the same thing and wanting to learn the same thing.
Yeah, and you can learn from each other. And I remember that's when my learning really accelerated. It was when I started meeting people. Yeah. And so in the pandemic, I got this idea wow, we're so many tattooers and we're all sitting at home. And I think it would be so great if there was one place where we could all connect and learn. And so I took that plus my sort of love for teaching, and I started working on 2 new courses, or actually 3, on designing and then tattoo techniques. And then I'm working on one that's more social media geared, or brand and marketing and business social media geared. Mm-hmm. And I thought that wouldn't it be cool if there was one place online where tattooers could go to take courses, but also to connect with each other, kind of like a Facebook.
Yeah.
And imagine you can take a bunch of courses within this Facebook, but also chat and help each other and give each other critique. And you can post your work and be like, hey, what do you think about these lines? Or I tried this new needle. And we can at least talk online and help each other. So like a community, an online community.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm starting.
Bringing artists together from all over the world.
Yeah.
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 I mean, why not use the internet? We're in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. And so exactly, there was the pandemic sort of aspect to it. Oh yeah, why don't we? And then the pandemic ended. It took so long time to build this. Yes. So by now it's ready, but the pandemic is but I still think that we're so many tattooers in the world, and social media is not really social.
Right.
I call it unsocial media.
Yeah.
And it would be cool if there was the same framework of kind of a social media,
right,
but just for tattooers, where we can talk. And imagine you could, I don't know, if there was a lot of tattooers in one place online, finding guest spots or guest artists for a studio could be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Getting feedback on your work could be a lot easier. Getting questions answered could be a lot easier. So yeah.
Can I throw a question out to you?
Of course.
What would be the benefit of someone giving their feedback on someone else's work? Like,
exactly, it's a good question. You'd have to, first of all, take it with a grain of salt, and I think that getting some kind of feedback is better than getting no feedback.
I don't mean what's the benefit for the person getting the feedback.
From giving feedback.
Yeah. What would be like, for me, I almost think of like, it just popped into my head just now, like I finished tattooing, I'm exhausted, and I get home and I'm like, do I want to give this person my opinion of their tattoo? So I'm wondering like what would be, because I feel like I know the answer, but I want to hear what you have to say. Do you know? And I'm not trying to shut it down. I'm just saying, I'm wondering what would be like the incentive, I suppose, for kind of going online and sharing what your opinion is on someone else's work.
Yeah. Why do Reddit exist? Who takes their time to go in and give these very elaborate answers for free, first of all, on their free time? I ask myself that question too. I think there are a lot of tattooers who are engaged and wanting to share. I'm naturally not so verbal. I don't like give unsolicited advice all over the place. Right. If I'm asked, I'll be happy to give it. So I ask the same question as you, like, okay, why would somebody take their time to do it? Right. But I have seen, because I've been testing this community thing for a while, that if the group is small enough and there's enough trust and sort of trust and vulnerability within this little group, people are really helpful to each other. And even though everyone does not go in and give feedback, there are some that do. And usually the people that do want to give feedback, they do it because they enjoy it. And there are those people. Then there are the listeners. And then there are, so within a community, there are always those who are more vocal about their opinions and things. And so just putting a lot of different people together in a group and creating a nice little culture, it can cultivate that. Yeah.
I suppose it's like it's almost like being in an art class. Yeah. And everyone shares their work, and then it's your job to go around and give
my feedback.
Yeah. And I think the more, I guess, when I said I feel like I have my answer, would be that the more feedback you share, the more you receive.
Yeah.
So
I think that's true too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was so nice to me to give me feedback last week. When I have something good to say about his or some constructive criticism, I'll share it. Yeah. I think, and sometimes a piece of feedback can be something as simple as like, oh, dude, I love that line, so clean. Love it. Yeah. Great job. Yeah. And that's important too.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that, and I'm experimenting with the community, and you really hit like a very interesting question. Yeah. Because it's human dynamics, right?
Yes.
Like, what are people going to do in this community?
Right.
But for now, I am the main teacher in that community, so I give most of the feedback.
Yeah.
And if you're in there, you can count on me giving you feedback, because I love doing it.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm asked.
Yes.
I'll give you my 5 cents on it.
That's huge. I mean, I feel like there's going to be so many artists that are listening to this going like, you're telling me that I can submit my work and Oscar Akermo is going to give me feedback?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm going to launch it this month, hopefully.
Amazing.
I've been saying that for like 4 months now, so take it with a grain of salt.
That's okay.
But and I mean, I don't know really what this project is going to end up being.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to involve community and tattooers helping tattooers, and me, who have access to so many great tattooers, to put them in the same room as people who want to learn.
Yes.
And maybe it could become a platform that connects tattooers with each other, where they get access to other, like more skilled experts.
Yeah.
And so it could be a multi-beneficial situation where you've been a tattooer for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have a bunch of stuff to teach from what you've learned. And if you were to ever want to sort of make a living from more than just sitting and tattooing, you could perhaps teach.
Yes.
And so what if there was a platform for you to go on to and say, hey, I'm Jake. I'm a teacher here. I specialize in micro portraits. I've done this for 8 years, and this is my work. And your work speaks for itself, right? Because it's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so if a tattooer is ever open to that, they could come in there and like perhaps make an extra income from teaching.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there are definitely people who would listen to you.
Yes. Yeah.
So the idea is to put those together.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you can have courses. You can have all sorts of things. Find guest spots. We're gonna try it all.
It's just opening the world. It's opening the tattoo community to a world of learning and possibilities.
Yeah, it's like anti-gatekeeping.
Yes, yeah.
So when I started tattooing, I had to go to like the Hells Angels biker shop, tattoo shop.
Yeah,
and I'd be like, hey, I want to learn tattooing, you know? And they're like, oh, yeah. And there's so this project is just all about reversing gatekeeping. The tattooing is here to stay. There's so many tattooers.
And as you said, the best way to learn is with other people.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And if we can't be in the same room, at least we can be on the same website.
I like that.
You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the idea.
Well, I'm really excited. I've actually had the privilege of being in that trial community for the last few months.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool. I go on there and I like you said, I'm pretty quiet, but I go on and have a look and see what's going on. And I could say that 100%, just the information you have shared on there, that alone is worth it.
I'm glad to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's like just very valuable information. And there's things that I think it's very easy for tattoo artists, especially as they progress in their career and they kind of start to feel more comfortable. Like, I don't have much more to learn, you know. Anything someone's going to share with me, I've already kind of have an idea of that, you know. And then you're humbled every once in a while because you get hit with something and you're like, whoa, I never thought of that. And now I can try applying that in my tattoos and start to see a difference.
Totally.
And that's absolutely happened to me. I went on and on this platform and there's a few things that stood out to me where I'm like, I never thought of that. You know,
That's so cool.
I never thought of doing that. And so I found it very helpful. So
I love hearing
there's
that.
a testimony for you.
Thank you very much. Because I mean, that's what I want to achieve. And even if you're not a person who's very vocal and talking, and I think you can go in and read other people's conversations and just see what people are talking about and see other perspectives. And
So it's for any tattoo artist in any part of their career.
I would say so.
Yeah.
We're like, as a business, we're very early, and we're still figuring out a lot of things. Like, is this going to be for beginners, or is this going to be for more seasoned artists? Is it going to be both? I hope so.
Well, I feel like you always can learn.
Sure.
Right? You're never done learning. Like, so there's that.
Totally. I think the one thing is that, and it's called C23 Labs, by the way, the company and the platform. But I think C23 Labs is going to be for anyone in their career, no matter early or late in their career, who are just curious. It's for curious people who just always want to learn.
Wonderful.
And it doesn't matter if you just began or if you've been tattooer for 10 years.
Yeah.
If you're still curious, I think you'll like
Perfect.
C23 Labs.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
That's an easy. So anyone who's curious, go check it out.
Yeah.
What do you think is next for tattooing? I recently had a conversation with someone saying that they think we peaked.
Really?
Yeah, they think we peaked or plateaued. I don't know what the word is, but
I hope not.
I know. I kind of said that too. I was like, I don't think so. But I will say that there was a huge acceleration in what the quality of what people were doing, the tattoos that were being done, and a huge like ramp up in just what was possible in tattooing over the last like say 5 years.
Totally.
It's just like skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I do think that now we've reached a part where it's kind of maybe mellowed out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that incline isn't so steep.
Mm.
But I think we're at a point where it's like you can ask yourself like, what's next? Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Because like, can we get much better?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I think we can.
Yeah.
But I guess if you look at the tattoo industry as a whole and compare that to like maybe the arc of a tattoo artist's journey, there is a point where there's like a lot of accelerated learning, and then there's a plateau.
Yeah.
So maybe the case is the same with the industry. Like maybe the gear isn't gonna fundamentally change so much from now, unless we start like these like lasers that'll tattoo you and stuff.
Sure.
And they're coming.
You think so?
I know they are.
Oh, God.
If you go into the community, you'll see an article about a machine that they're building. I don't want to market that product, so I'm not affiliated to it. But there are startups.
I've heard of that concept.
Yeah, building these like print. I'm skeptically. There will be a little mini market for that, perhaps.
Maybe small little.
Yeah,
token
they can actually
tattoo.
only do like an square inch at the moment.
Because it's not flat. It's like
No.
there's so many. Yeah, but I guess that will change as well.
Yeah, there are workarounds.
Hopefully in another 75 years.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully we'll all be dead by then.
Yeah.
But so maybe there may not be that many like fundamental changes in gear.
Sure.
Like we've seen, like with the pen and cartridges and all that stuff. So maybe we're at some type of plateau there for now. I hope that what we will see in terms of like getting better is again that we see more crazy styles and more crazy tastes.
Yeah.
I think that could go on forever.
Yeah.
And I hope that social media or unsocial media does a good job in helping artists create little markets for the style that only they can do. And I think that that's going to keep the tattoo industry very interesting, and you'll be able to find a lot of cool new stuff. But yeah, tattoo machines will probably look the same. It's
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope the artistic stuff develops.
Yeah.
And keeps developing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I suppose I'll just throw out one last question: is if there was one bit of advice that you can leave. I know we've shared a lot of advice here for young artists or aspiring tattoo artists, but people, like you said, you mentioned before, starting now as a tattoo artist would, to me, sounds very daunting. They're entering in like the peak, not peak, but they're entering in a very like saturated, is that the right word? There's so many good tattoo artists right now, and they're all doing really well.
Yeah.
And I feel like it'd be so hard to stand out. Where do you find your place in that? I think there was maybe an opportunity 10 years ago to make your mark.
Yeah.
And I feel like that'd be so hard now. Where do you even start? So like for those people that are feeling discouraged, like, how do I find myself here? What a bit of advice would you give them?
Yeah. I think that if you want to make a mark on the industry, working on your craft and your artistry, and focusing on trying to bring something new to the market, it will always be welcomed. Like, even if there are a billion tattooers in the world, if you have something unique to share, then you're always going to cut through the noise. But if you're just starting out and want to become a tattooer at this point, I think that even if there are so many talented tattoo artists in the world today, you can be a tattooer too. Especially if you focus on the human aspect of tattooing, like the service aspect, I think, of tattooing. I believe this anyway.
Yeah.
And if you go into learning tattooing and going into it wanting to be a tattooer because, yes, you want to do art, and you want to do cool tattoos, but if your motivation is also to be like, I want to be a great tattoo artist to my client, and I want to give my clients a great experience, not just in like serving them coffee and stuff, but in doing it for the sake of being a service man, like being at service.
Yeah. So be a good person.
Be a good person and do it for the clients, and then your client's gonna come back. There's always gonna be clients for that.
Yeah.
And you're gonna build a nice clientele that way, and you're gonna be able to make a living out of tattooing, even if there's a billion tattooers, because people are gonna want to come to you.
Yeah.
So if you can combine that with some great work, then yeah. But if your only motivation to becoming a tattooer is, I want to be a rock star tattooer and I want to make X money, I want to have 100,000 followers, you can have all those things, but that's tough to compete with. And so just be honest with yourself, like why do you want to be a tattooer? And it's okay to want all those things. I wanted all those things.
Yeah.
And
but to remember there's more.
There's more. And maybe with all the tattooers in the world today, maybe the more critical factor to what's gonna like decide whether you can make a career or not in tattooing is the meeting with the client. How was that? What experience did they have? Did they love coming to get a tattoo by you?
Yeah.
If yes, then they're gonna keep coming back, most likely, and you can build a career like that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's my answer.
Amazing. Oscar, it's been such an honor to have you here and do this with me. So
thank you.
Really, seriously, thank you so much. You've been a massive inspiration to me throughout my career, and you are one of the best. So a lot of people are going to be excited to hear from you again, and I really appreciate it. I'm coming to New York more often now, so we'll have to catch up next time as well. So
come by, I'll make you a coffee.
Okay, sounds good.
For sure. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you so much.